Tonight, a police operation focused on cold cases to venture into prisons for help, and a new music festival set to play in Corn later this year.
From our 7 Spencer Golf studios, your nightly news with Louise Hedger begins now.
Good evening. A campaign to solve some of the state's biggest murder mysteries is entering a new phase. 8 cases from the Spencer Golf will feature in a deck of cards, which will be distributed in prisons along with TV screens.
A new phase of Operation Persist is shedding light on some of SA's darkest chapters. A deck of cards brandishing the photos of murder victims will be distributed to criminals inside our state prisons. Included are the faces of 8 victims from the Spencer Golf.
We believe that the people coming into contact with our system may have information that will assist SAPOL to resolve these long-standing unsolved crimes.
They'll be handed to inmates during recreational hours, in hope that someone inside the walls may hold a key piece of information.
People in a criminal environment often know about other things that go on in a criminal environment.
Alongside the deck of cards, information will be further shared at correctional service facilities. LCD screens presenting the faces of victims and information about their disappearances will be aired on monitors in correctional service facilities like this one behind me. 2 of the faces presented on the cards are that of Martin Meffert and Colleen Adams. Operation Persist was successful in ascertaining information on both victims, leading to 2 withstanding murder trials.
Public information is critical to solving some of these homicides, and in effect our successes to date have been 2 of those matters have resolved with people being convicted.
Anyone with information should call Crime Stoppers on 1800 333 000. Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Golf News.
After weeks of scorching temperatures, Broken Hill was hit with some very wet and wild weather last night. Just after 8 o'clock, the Silver City was blanketed in a dust storm, which blew over bins and covered the town in a brown haze. Wind gusts were up to 80 kilometres an hour. Shortly after, the city was battered with a thunderstorm, hundreds of lightning strikes lighting up the night sky, some even causing blackouts. Rain was next, a heavy downpour lasting about 20 minutes. But surprisingly, there was no serious damage caused. Locals in Kimber will wait to hear whether the vote for the nuclear waste facility is deemed unlawful after a federal court judge adjourned the case. The Barngala people have taken Kimber Council to court after no agreement was reached in meetings with the Human Rights Commission. They argue it's discrimination that they can't have a say in the vote because many live outside council boundaries. 2 sites in Kimber are shortlisted to host the facility, along with another near Hawker in the Flinders Ranges. The Nationals candidate for the electorate of Barwon has made his first visit to Menindee this year. Andrew Scheer today visited the small town to inspect the recent fish kill alongside the New South Wales Deputy Premier.
An overdue visit to an area in dire straits.
It's highly stressful usually to come across something like this.
Andrew Scheer visited Menindee today to inspect the area and hear from locals. By his side, Deputy Premier John Barilaro. It's the first time Mr Scheer's been to Menindee since late December, when an estimated 1 million fish died earlier this month. A number of politicians and candidates visited the region, but Mr Shire did not. He says running his farm and poultry business during the holiday period limited his travels.
I've got a small business to run and it was an opportunity over Christmas and New Year for me to run the business on my own while it relatively shuts down.
A holiday after that also preventing a visit.
I had a 1-week holiday with my wife and 3 daughters, which unfortunately came just after the fish kill event. It wasn't timed quite right.
After seeing the extent of the recent fish kill, Mr Scheer says mismanagement isn't the cause, it's the dry conditions.
I have to remind people that this is an extraordinary drought, the worst that I've ever endured on my property and right across New South Wales.
Mr Scheer plans to visit the region more often in the lead up to the state election. Patrick Ryankey, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Premier Stephen Marshall has unveiled a new plan to boost the state's population. Growing regional South Australia is a big part of the plan, with new visas proposed to attract skilled migrants to places outside of Adelaide.
South Australia's population growth is flatlining compared to other states.
Victoria grows by more people every 27 days than South Australia grows across the entire year.
It's being felt here in our region. Local industries have warned there's a looming shortage of skilled workers for projects like Olympic Dam and the Steelworks upgrade. Meanwhile, medical professionals are getting harder to recruit. Premier Stephen Marshall today unveiled a plan to address the situation. Amongst the proposals is the creation of designated migration areas in country SA, which would offer incentives for new Australians. Mr Gannon says the idea has merit.
Decentralise some of these migrant opportunities when we do have a conversation about population.
While a Chamber of Commerce President Ron Hay has cautiously welcomed the idea. He says while there's a need for migrants, there also must be plans for upskilling existing populations.
But we cannot do that to the detriment of, say, for example, people who live in the community by bringing a whole heap of other people in. There has to be a balance.
He's also urging the government to thoroughly think it through so communities get what they need.
We get it right and it's consistent and it gives us longevity for our communities.
John Hunt, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The first of several public hearings on the Fire and Emergency Services Amendment Bill has taken place in Port Lincoln. Many are questioning the proposed changes, which would give the Country Fire Service new powers over farmers during harvest.
It's the situation that should be avoided at all costs, a raging fire caused by someone refusing to cease harvest in extreme heat conditions.
You'll always, unfortunately, get that one or two that won't do it, and they tend not to, and that poses a risk to the CFS, it poses a risk to everyone.
The first public hearing of a committee reviewing the Fire and Emergency Services Amendment Bill had a strong turnout. Given the EP is a major grain growing district, the big topic today was how and who enforces a harvest ban.
The concerns, I guess, are around who's going to take ultimate authority, who's going to have that power to direct should it come in.
A concern for some is if a blanket ban is enforced by the CFS, farmers could miss out on prime harvest conditions.
What would happen at North Shields is different to Mount Hope, different to Cummins, and therefore you can't put a blanket ban right across.
There's also concern of a negative impact should the power be placed onto the CFS and some of its volunteers, many of whom are also farmers.
So we need to be very careful about who calls off reaping during fire danger. Where will that power lie? Should it lie with the police? Should it lie with the regional commander?
Today was the first of 4 public hearings across the state. The report will be presented to Parliament in March. Casey Trelaw, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, Broken Hill City Council looking to give police a new home, and a star-studded lineup penciled in for the Memorial Oval redevelopment in Port Pirie. Hello again. Broken Hill City Council has come up with a potential location for the city's new police station. It's been 8 months since funding for a new station was announced, but since then there's been no progress.
Police are wanted in the city's CBD.
If you haven't got a strong centre of town and a strong main street, the city dies.
Broken Hill City Council is currently developing a plan to reinvigorate Argent Street. A part of that plan is building a new library and cultural precinct behind the Town Hall facade. A recent survey conducted by Council shows a majority of locals are in favour of having tourist information services delivered in that new library. If that becomes a reality, the old visitor centre could be the site of the new police station.
It seems illogical to, all of a sudden lose 65 to 100 people by way of the police moving out of the CBD area. So, as part of this process, what we've been looking to do is see how we can try and retain the police in the CBD.
The city received $16 million last May for the station, with many believing construction would have started by now.
Well, the location, once that's firmed up, the budget's announced in July. We'll go to tender as soon as properties can get that underway. I would expect the tender to be finalised by the end of the year and the construction would start early next year.
Council says they will continue to consult with police and the community. Rebuilding on the station's current location won't work as there's heritage buildings and it's too small. Patrick Ryanke, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Since Port Lincoln's Otis Carter joined the Indigenous Marathon Project and ran in the New York Marathon, his life has changed for the better. Now there's a chance for others to experience the positivity he has.
Otis Carter's life has changed forever. It's all thanks to being selected for the Indigenous Marathon Project, allowing him to travel overseas for the first time and cross the New York Marathon finish line.
Words can't explain how good that feeling was. It's just everything just got lifted off my shoulders and I just felt like I was myself and I was a strong person and I could be that leader that I always wanted to be.
He now sees himself as a role model for his community, family and his country. And to celebrate his achievements, a ceremony will be held as his graduation from the project.
A lot of people know him from football and stuff like that, but a lot of them now know him as the bloke that ran the New York City Marathon and that's really doing great things in his community.
Now other young Indigenous people can share the same experience. The project will be holding tryouts, looking for the next person to develop into a young leader through running.
It's not about picking athletes or fast runners, it's about picking young, up-and-coming, aspiring role models and leaders in the community that want to make a change.
Tryouts will take place here at Mallee Park on Sunday from 5 p.m. You can apply on the Indigenous Marathon Project website, and remember, you don't need any running experience to give it a go.
Just be brave and just give it a go. It's an opportunity of a lifetime to be involved in this program. It's a great program that definitely changed me.
Casey Trelaw, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
An Eyre Peninsula woman has lost her driver's licence in Port Lincoln after blowing more than twice the legal alcohol limit. Patrols pulled over the 55-year-old driver just after 2 a.m. yesterday. The woman immediately lost her licence for 6 months and had her car impounded. She will appear in court at a later date. Meanwhile, South Australia Police has confirmed over 9,000 drivers were breathalyzed for drink driving over the Australia Day long weekend, with over 59 found to be over the limit. 596 were drug tested and 43 returned positive samples. Around 500 people were detected for speeding, 60 for seatbelt offences, and 59 drivers were fined for using their mobile phones. The blitz was part of Operation Safe Long Weekend, which ran from Friday until Monday. Rural towns in the far north will host a new travelling music festival. Corn is one of the 4 destinations for the event, called 500 Miles of Music, which has already added one of country music's biggest names to the bill.
Outback towns, camping and the best in country music. A new festival tour will soon bring all 3 under the same umbrella.
We decided to put on an event that would benefit regional towns, not so much the bigger ones.
Local John Simpson is the man behind the 500 Miles of Music tour, which will kick off at Yadunda in July before moving north, stopping for shows in Corn.
So we're going to be having the stage that'll just sit here in front of the hall.
As well as Blinman and William Creek. Organisers are hoping to build off the success of the iconic Big Red Bash in Birdsville to create SA's own remote festival tour to boost far north communities.
And I think events like this, which can get extra people from out of town in to spend some money, that's the major thing.
The school holiday dates poised to attract a band of travelling supporters.
And it's aimed at the family market, and a lot of the campers, a lot of retirees go to these music festivals as well.
Gracing the stage will be winner of 8 Golden Guitar Awards, Adam Harvey.
I always find that our best concerts are in those tiny little towns, because people appreciate the fact that you've come to them.
Local businesses have jumped behind the venture, and organisers are hoping a strong online response will also translate to ticket sales.
It's nice to have it, but everybody has to turn up to make it worthwhile.
Garth Burley, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
The official opening ceremony of Port Perry's $25 million sport precinct will now be sharing the date with the JLT Showdown. State and federal politicians, the governor and sporting influencers are some of the high-profile names expected to attend the event.
The 2nd of March is gearing up to be a busy day in Port Pirie. Council has decided to share its official opening ceremony just hours before the first bounce at the showdown.
We've been able to coincide that with an AFL game, so those people that will come to the opening will obviously then get the benefit of being able to see a JLT Crows versus Port game.
The guest list is yet to be fully finalised, but it appears that Governor Hugh Van Lay has accepted an invitation. Other names include State Sport Minister Corey Wingard, along with his federal counterpart and Nationals Deputy Leader Bridget McKenzie.
Invite local sporting clubs, others that have provided support and funding as we've gone through the process. We'll invite representatives from the sporting codes.
During the ceremony, a commemorative plaque is set to be unveiled just outside the function centre. AFL regulators have already visited to check the quality of the surface and they're extremely pleased with the results. The Spencer Golf League is set to play a scratch match between players from Port Pirie and Port Augusta.
We'll have under 21 boys, Port Pirie versus Port Augusta. And prior to that, we're hopeful of getting a women's game, Port Pirie.
It's going to be a great opportunity to showcase some of the region's young talent in front of the AFL. Dominic Beaton, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us. After the break, we'll catch up with our fishing experts to see what's biting. Welcome back. Port Augusta is preparing to play host to events in this year's Adelaide Fringe Festival. A number of shows are planned for the town, including one acclaimed Adelaide act who is due to perform in the area for the first time.
As music tastes continue to change, an upcoming performance is sure to provide audiences with some nostalgia from a golden era.
So we're a 60s tribute group. We perform all of those songs that are so, well known from the 60s.
The Beach Boys, the Beatles and Australia's rock and roll king Johnny O'Keefe are just some of the artists the band covers.
And this year we're adding some female artists as well. So we've got Aretha Franklin, Martha Reeves, the Supremes.
Ben Francis is one member of the four-man group, the 64, who'll be front and centre stage for this year's edition of the Desert Fringe.
And we've decided to take it regional, this Fringe. So we're going to Port Augusta.
With over 100 shows under their belt, the group is sure to give the boomers a blast from the past.
It's a really fun show, high energy, lots of choreography.
Deadly Funny and circus shows are just some of the unique performances penciled in for the first weekend in March. Local talents Desert Voices and the Dusty Feed Mob will also show off their skills across the 3-day program. The barracks is set to host all the events, and with last year's crowd numbers very high, organisers are urging locals to head to the Fringe Festival website and grab your tickets. Garth Burley, 7 Spencer Golf News.
And now it's time to see what's biting in the Spencer Golf. Here's this week's Fish and Tips.
Week around the golf fishing tips from Port Pirie. I tell you, some really good things have been happening. I've been talking to some of the land-based anglers, and just along the wharf area we're getting an immense amount of crabs and big in size. I've seen also in the boaties running around the Third Creek area, just on the edge of the channel in front of Roonah Island, also getting their crabs in no time flat and good sized ones. So as we've said in the past, January, February is our best time for crabbing. We've had some yellowfin whiting on the sandy banks right through from Talawi Beach to Barrows Beach. That's about all I've got, I think, this week, so we'll see you next week.
G'day and welcome to this week's Fish Tips from Port Augusta, Jewel North. Well, the weather's really playing havoc here at the moment. It's not really stinking hot, it's fairly windy, which we've got today. Tip there though, that wind should bring on the silver whiting out in the middle banks and also along the shorelines down along the shacks. Nice sizes down there. Won't get a real lot, but what you will get will be big. Heaps and heaps of crabs around at the moment, as you'd expect. The kids are back at school now, so it might be a nice time to go out, chuck out the nets and fill up on crabs there and just have a bit of chill out time. There are some salmon trout up in the creeks around Port Patterson, down also around Chinaman's Creek area. Plus also there has been the odd big flatter getting caught as well.
Hi, Whalers Fishing Report this week. The crabs are certainly in full swing around Whyalla. Some good bag limits are being achieved in a couple of hours. However, you do need the good running tides to get in them. And the best areas have been just south of Whyalla, about halfway down to 8 Mile Creek has been the best areas on the white holes. Also around Whyalla, there's been a few nice sized garfish taken along the old One Steel walls. A little bit further down the silt ground, some nice garfish in that area as well. Land-based around Whyalla, still some nice big bronze whaler sharks getting caught from the Point Lowly areas off the rocks. Best time has been late in the afternoon through to sundown.
G'day and welcome to Fishing Tips in Port Lincoln. Well, the blue crabs have been getting a little bit better in the local bays, and yeah, some reasonable catches are coming from the shallow ends of the bays at the moment. The whiting have been a little bit slow, but there have been some reasonable whiting caught down the passage, especially down around Thistle Island. South of Thistle at the moment, there still are some patches of tuna. Most of those fish are in that 8 to 10 kilo class. Moving over to the Coffin Bay side, the farm beach grounds have slowed a little bit over the last couple of weeks, but there still are some patches of reasonable fish in the deeper water. Also in the farm beach ground, there have been a few nice gummy sharks caught. And in the shallow areas of those grounds, there have been some nice garfish as well. And that's all for this week. We'll see you with more fishing tips next week.
Stay with us after the break. We'll have a check on the weekend weather forecast with Britt Aylen. Now time to take a look at what's happening in the weather. Here's Britt.
Thanks, Louise. Well, today brought some respite from yesterday's heat with partly cloudy conditions across the Gulf. Some wind about in Port Augusta with a top of 29 today, Whyalla 26, Port Lincoln 23, Broken Hill 33 and Port Pirie 30. A high pressure system moved south of the Bight today with a ridge causing partly cloudy skies. It will continue eastwards tomorrow to be over the Tasman by evening. On the waters we'll find southeasterly winds at 15 to 20 knots, swells to 2.5 metres and sunrise is due at 6:39 a.m. Tomorrow is looking sunny over most parts, Port Augusta and Corn with a top of 36, Woodner and Port Pirie both 35, Broken Hill 34, 31 the top for Whyalla and Clare, Port Lincoln 29, Cleve and Kadina both 28. And it's looking to be a fine and sunny weekend. 34 in Port Lincoln on Saturday, 29 on Sunday. Cleve sunny and 38 on Saturday, Sunday 31. Woodner back up to 41 degrees and partly cloudy on Saturday, Sunday 33. Whyalla 37 on Saturday, Sunday windy with a top of 33. Port Augusta mostly fine and 41 on Saturday, Sunday gusty and 38. A nice and sunny weekend ahead for Kadina. Port Pirie looking clear over the weekend, 40 the top on Saturday, sunny and 35 on Sunday. Similar conditions for Clare, 38 on Saturday. And sunny days ahead for Broken Hill, 39 on Saturday, Sunday 41. And Louise, that's all from me for this Thursday. Back to you.
Thanks, Britt. That's your local news for this Thursday evening. We will have updates later, but until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.